Yes, hello, good morning, and welcome to Ivan Che Innocent One here on YouTube. Me say when you subscribe, try subscribe and be part of this intellectual community, and let's grow together. And we are back again to delve into some of the critical issues and pini yang kasa your collective progress. There be a set of music no Ghana, your democracy, your development, whatever. No se beko ya mene wo obi emfra bonti ma mechichiro man no. And if we sit and look fold our arms at the very people we give power to know always rule at their own conveniences and interests. So it is Menewoya responsibility to ensure that we still follow a conversation a bit me a drive national growth, national development. I bit me empower young people and adibia bayabama near akoya mayan. So it is the Menewoya responsibility. I don't know. That is what we need to do. There is this conversation that has come up in town, and over the weekend we call Joy Pram, we had a discussion at the tail end of the discussion and there about the call to purchase a new presidential jet. Because of said Musia program, no time, and then as a 4 year problem, and sometimes all Casacra will be one see and now more question, so you are unable to, it's a problem. But I think here we can have time to delve deeper into the issues na yate say and then as a forum. So the presidential jet na started when there is this guy MP called Asefua, when he lied, let me say he lied to the general public by posting on social media, said President Mahama Ahain private jet edi two kwan akọway post to some weird that guy, isn't just an ordinary person. And now yes, this is a nipa yatwa abamano or your MP. So if nothing at all, Krana, you need to be very truthful, factual, and be able to, build that kind of public trust. Nipa na or your MP, I dear free in the harbor, I am very reliable. But unfortunately, as petty as it has always been, as unintelligent as many have always been, ended up saying he was just cooking figures, putting falsehood and false narrative out there just to court public opprobrium against the president, because some of them are still aggrieved. Say at the time, and President Akufo-Addo hand jet, and then as a form Ghana for cassette TI, NT, and do President Mahama so quickly within them no or more pre say President Mahama so uncle hand jet. Na ye equalizing and say, oh, some more kind. And I think that it was very unfortunate, very embarrassing, and very disheartening. So, Obia, what for about manner, people who go about town with the prefix honorable will transform himself into such a character, engaging in those kind of gata politics. But it is what it is. If you have been following Ghana politics, some of these things will not surprise you. So that is it. So we are called by ya best for a conversation as to whether we need a new presidential jet or not, and a whole lot of stuff. My argument is that, you see, the argument of going to buy a presidential jet or not is not on the table. The argument of going to buy a new presidential jet or not currently is not on the table. This whole conversation came about because of the CE, because already presidential jet, per Maneboame's last one of his interviews, discussions, or Manebeda said it is not in good shape, and that there is the need for us to work on it. So this particular jet, your term Edical France, because that is where the engineers are more working on that, and schedule na the core, expect to send term, engineers decided no, they need to work extra on it. So as we speak, the jet is still in France, and there hasn't been any technical report. Actually, at this point, this jet must be jettisoned, it must be overhauled, or must be grounded. That hasn't come up. So, President Mahama is supposed to travel out there, and then he goes out there and said, no, the economy is recovering. and public trust in that kind of way, because Ghana for a part of the governance architecture following. So in order not to cut more, maybe Yanko spending more, no, I will prefer to go for a commercial flight. And don't forget that this is not the first time President Mahama Akufo commercial flight. In the past, I see pen and I see bebre, but very often I attention any soon to people don't know. Yes, you can talk about the ordeal and those kind of way, but this is a temporary period that you're waiting for the coming of the presidential jet. So the question is, the reason why this guy and other people started about this whole thing, abrasive for can seminar a fall, then the MPP started a new conversation, say, then let's go and buy a new private jet. And to Abakai, Mene Kojopoku call Joy Prime, no, that was his conversation. And for them, answer at that conversation, no, you better quiet, you better discuss it, say, we need to buy a new jet, no, something has to be done before. And that thing they are calling, they say, I'm told Kennedy Agyapong and other people made those particular way. They say, as Okudzeto, Felix, and some other NDC people who were on Akufo-Addo on daily basis and now you're chastising no, should come and apologize to Ghanaians and Akufo-Addo first. Once they are done, no, we can activate a conversation and have a new private jet. And the whole, and I may say, that call, no, it's your friend saying, it's an unreasonable call because Okudzeto and Felix ain't only anybody any apology. Because at the time, the conversation wasn't even so much about say Yankoto jet and say my Yankoto jet. The conversation wasn't about say Akufo-Addo akohan your friend is saying wakohan jet wa high jet. No. It was about the outrageous cost. Not ye high jet at a cost at the time and Ghana economy was dripping, sinking. No? At the time, the president was pulling millions of dollars to high expensive, luxurious jet flying around the globe without recourse to prevailing economic circumstances at the time. That was the issue. It wasn't about president akohan jet inti because a jet no main jet asayna enya available. And at the time jet no nen say ye. Don't forget say jet na bra na Akufo-Addo hand this luxurious jet na upon we are use. So if it was in bad condition and upon we at the time was a president and he was using it. So this whole call of Yanko, so all that they are doing is to use this presidential jet to rationalize those unwitty and those senseless expenditure now. Of course, so hiring of the jet, So says I more pesi Yanko to new jet there. Then and I'm saying nobody owes nobody any damn apology because at the time, looking at the prevailing economic circumstances at the time. It hasn't changed much this time around. That is why President Mahama is not hiring a jet. That is what people should know. And these, if Obi only anybody apology, it is Akufo-Addo and his band of those misguided individuals. They own Ghanaians an apology. And you Ghana for and so a barbon thing say, oh, jet na mo de buy, it's not in good condition. Intimon cut off for I will openly say yes, we should buy a ninja because that buying, will be premised on a technical report a detail say indeed jet now and you're correct. And so and you see while going to aviation and as a for jet and a car as a contraption, it doesn't happen that way. Now last time I catch this jet can be reconstituted and make it new. So it happen. And now call Russia and Ukraine, and most of the planes we used to fight, and most of them were manufactured in the Soviet era. But you see, jet, you can reconstitute the entire jet. Amana you new, repurpose it, and you can do everything. So jet we are Ukraine, they say, and adiachi no more enya we can take away the engines and as if we're replacing new one. We can remodel this whole thing to look new, without necessarily going out there to buy. So I wonder why the media try to to narrow the conversations. We need to buy a new jet. And I've been a photo so to radio so or a journalist. And sometimes you listen to the kind of weird argument that these guys make. And when Akufo-Addo was hiring, no, and I won't say abo mutiriso, abo he fan for tiriso. Was it right when the gentleman was hiring those expensive luxurious jets at the time? And we are journalists, now we are reasonable, very sensible. Now partisan politics and I talk adidiwa dreamer. You will know, say, what the gentleman was doing at the time was wrong. At the time, pensioners were asked to take a pay cut. At the time, Ghana was locked out of the commercial space. At the time, inflation was running around 52%. At the time, our currency was the worst performing currency in the whole of the world. How dare you say people should go and apologize to Akufo-Addo for such, your friend is saying, crass mismanagement at Ghana for a witness here. So this whole argument in my culture say it has never been about going to buy a new jet. When you hear MPP and their journalists at the radio, so yes, it is a way of taking a spite at those of us who were against your friend is saying, sir, Nsemhununana Omudi at the time, no. So and all that they are saying is they are seeking to justify those reckless expenditure. I course Akufo-Addo say not jet no cry say jet is like a machine. The mere factor is not in good condition today, and it doesn't mean say Akufo-Addo time now it was perpetually incapacitated or it was in a very bad condition. Who is one upon we was using, and the president at the time could have communicated and again up to hire a jet, a less expensive jet, but he prioritized luxury over any other considerations. At the time, Ghanaians were mourning. At the time, Ghanaians were crying. At the time, Ghanaians could not survive the heat and the economy. That was the time this senseless and reckless expenditure not yet to sasikanugu. And kwabrane betena baka say monkopa chawa am say damn the womu team, nobody owns anybody, no apology. If obi he obi apology, I said they have to apologize to us. So the argument about buying a new jet, that will depend. And even President Mahama himself hasn't said anything about going to buy a private jet. And as I'm going to buy a presidential jet, the presidential jet debate can come up if say French for the catch and say your jet in the way if they reconstitute it we can have that conversation and buy a new jet. There will be no problem about that because jet no town from coffee. But the entire Ghana for Akufo-Addo time wasn't about say all hand jet. It was the insemhunu and the heightened insensitivity that was being displayed by the president at the time. And Ghana for Kenyans na ontie to the extent that jet na ya hand no hand our bia na a cost over $18,000 to $17,000. At the time you be package jet na away tamaka. I see enko baby na ya package has saying. There was this rumor running around say yato. We were paying for it at the time, and I'm for a sofa. So it wasn't about when will be cut jet and I'm also no. You see, some of us, your principles has always been unwavering. It's about the greater good. What I say, so it is never about say a jet and I say a jet. If we have good reason to go and buy jet today, we will all support it, and that is not even the issue. So those of you out there seeking to justify say people Okudzeto and Obi should go and apologize to Akufo-Addo for them. And some who no bedin wo kroma the last 8 years, Obi will be pa Obi chawa. They should come and apologize to us for messing up this particular country for the trust that was reposed in them by Ghanaians, because nobody gives you such enormous responsibility built around trust, and you betray people that much and decide to do things that they want at the end. It doesn't favor nobody but you and that tiny band of unruly guys around you. We are more mindset. That is a Bush orientation about modern leadership. And such Bush orientation about modern leadership, men and never be a way. Because there are enlightened minds out there who will figure you out and they will present you to the people who you really are, not what you seek to be. These are the factual realities. Yes, I have listened to some people calling say, yes, say buy and let's say a top private jet. We can still buy the private jet. A top presidential. It's not an issue. If this plane, I say, what stop her from buying it? We can still buy it. You understand? But don't seek to justify those reckless expenditure. And say, because I'm for criticizing, you know, say because he had good reason. What good reasons? Good reason to pay $17,000 per hour. To the point that jet na yamfa nyanyansa asem we de na nsem hunu kwa na yedidi. At the time people were furious. So I think the MPP will have a greater job to do if they are able to organize themselves when the conversation and as if they can have it. And I ran to number and I say president to crowd doors and say I cannot come fashion. Look at this mentality. Since when? Now realize it's president to kind of do. No more common fashion. Economy na grand attia pants I'm saying no. Don't you need investors? And that is the purpose the president traveled. Wooing investors to come. And yesterday I'm told he's gotten some investors who are willing to come home and come to Ghana and invest over $100 million thereabout, if I say, in the economy. And all these things, you know, may help to boost, because at this point, Ghana's economy, you know, is at the crossroad. We are just trying to build things up, and any help we are here in terms of people bringing money and local when I want to boost to my businesses and as for here, and that is what we're doing. So it has never been about the jet. It was solely about the Nsemhuna na air coso under the Akufo-Addo time, and the fact is they never respected Ghanaians. At the time we were telling them to get off that luxurious jet and identify themselves with the average and the ordinary Ghanaian. They saw themselves as kings and queens living on the moon. They didn't care what we were going through. That was the issue, and that still remains the issue. So you guys should just shut up and give us a break. Nobody is apologizing to nobody. You can go to hell.